Well, thank you all very much for being here, and I welcome you to this press conference. My fellow Texans and members of the media, we are welcoming you here today because, unfortunately, the President has denied the state of Texas the much-needed major disaster declaration for the fires burning border to border across the state. Texas has been battling fires under very dry conditions for months. Governor Perry first issued a state emergency proclamation on December 21 of 2010, and the situation has only deteriorated since. To date, more than 2.2 million acres have burned, and more fires started every day. State and local resources have passed the breaking point. We no longer possess the resources to fight the next fire. We no longer possess the resources to rebuild the lives, the homes, the ranches, and the farms that have been destroyed. Yesterday, as the President flew across West Texas, I am sure he couldn't have missed the scarred landscape. I don't know whether Mr. Obama is playing politics or not with a major disaster, but my constituents can't help but wonder if Texas is being punished for not voting for the President. I and many of my colleagues up here today are small government fiscal conservatives, but there are responsibilities of the federal government, and protecting America is one of them. FEMA's own mission statement reads, to support our citizens and first responders to ensure that as a nation we work together to build, sustain, and improve our capabilities to prepare for, protect against, respond to, recover from, and mitigate all hazards. If the President is not going to let FEMA step in to help Texas prepare for, protect against, respond to, recover from, and mitigate against fire hazards, I really have to wonder what the agency is funded for. Members of the media, fellow Texans, it is time for the President to get serious and issue a major disaster declaration for Texas. I now would like to invite my Texans to comment, and we'll start out with Congressman Pete Olson from Texas 22.
Good morning. I'm Congressman Pete Olson, and I represent the 22nd Congressional District of Texas. I'd like to thank my colleague Congressman Canseco for all his leadership in putting this press conference together. We're in a fight to do what's right for Texas. The district I represent, all 4 counties, every one of them, has had a burn ban on since early last year. We've had 1/4 inch of rain. It has been the most rain we've had since January on a single day. 1/4 inch of rain in the district I represent. 2.2 million acres of Texas have been burned by fires. Governor Perry rightly asked for a major disaster declaration. It took over 3 weeks, almost a month, for the administration to respond. The response was a denial. I call on the President to be the President Texans need right now, to set aside partisan politics and do what's right for the people of our state. They're hurting. They've lost their businesses, their homes, their livestock, their crops. And we're calling on the President to approve the disaster declaration and take care of Texans the way he should.
Thank you, Congressman, and I now call on my colleague, Bill Flores from Texas 17.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. There appear to be 2 Americas. There are those citizens of the states that supported President Obama in his quest for the presidency 2 years ago, and there are those states that didn't. And if you're in the second group, it appears that politics are involved in every decision that's made. Let me give you some examples. And when you look at Obama versus Texas, we're getting no help from FEMA for the fires that we are rightfully due. When it comes to offshore drilling, we have 2 moratoria that prevent offshore drilling, causing the loss of thousands of jobs. We have EPA attacks on Texas businesses and on the Texas air permitting process. We have the Fish and Wildlife Service getting ready to ban or to place a particular species of lizards on the endangered species list and stopping all energy activities in West Texas. We have the lack of support for border security in Texas, despite the fact that we have 2/3 of the border with Mexico. And we didn't get the space shuttle. Now, when you look at the fires, our request that we're lawfully due on fires. Since the fire started in November of 2010, The Texas Forest Service and area fire departments have fought almost 10,000 fires, burning over 2.2 million acres. Currently, the Texas Forest Service is working on 10 major fires that span almost 600,000 acres. 207 of our 254 counties are reporting burn bans. And yet, on May 3rd, President Obama and FEMA denied the state of Texas' request for federal major disaster declaration to assist with the current devastation and ongoing wildfire season. And under the law, Texas is entitled to this aid. Mr. President, we respectfully request that you quit punishing Texas because of our success in creating jobs, economic growth, and energy. And we ask that you honor our request for federal disaster assistance. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. And now I call on my colleague, Randy Nagebauer from Texas 19.
Thank you, Kiko, and thank you for all the work that you've done on this important issue. You know, I think we have to kind of personalize this. One of the things that I did recently was in my district is, one, I flew over a lot of the devastated area, and it was amazing to me. I have a very large district, 29,000 square miles, 27 counties, and literally from one end of my district to the other had fire burns almost all throughout the district. But one of the most touching things, though, that I had an opportunity to do was to go and visit the widow of a volunteer firefighter that paid the ultimate price trying to save his community. These are the kinds of sacrifices that the people in Texas have made. A lot of these fires have been fought, as I said, by volunteer fire departments. Very limited resources, and these are men and women that have regular jobs, but as their commitment to their region and to their community, they've been working as volunteers, and honestly, many of them haven't been working at their regular job very much because the fires continue to burn on. And it's been said that the number of fires start each and every day in our congressional district. It's just unconscionable that the President of the United States would ignore these great Americans and these families and businesses that have suffered so much from all of these fires. And for him and FEMA to ignore that, whereas there is precedent where we have provided disaster assistance for fires in the past, I think unfortunately leads people to believe that politics are involved in this. Mr. President, it's time for politics aside to do your job, help the people of Texas.
Thank you, Randy. And I now call on my colleague, Congressman Granger from Texas 12.
Thank you, Kiko, for all the work you put into this. I'm going to follow what Randy Nagebauer said and talked about how we're doing this. Texas has been devastated first by the drought and now by the fires. And Texas has a wonderful emergency response team. And we do respond county to county, community to community. So we have been out there fighting. But at some point, the resources are tapped out, and the devastation is so enormous. When you think about 2.2 million acres, 400 houses destroyed, that's what we're dealing with. We have funds, and we have responded in this country to devastations, whether it's the flooding that's happening right now, the tornadoes that devastated the South. We need the response in Texas right now. Right now, we're willing to send $500 million to help the flood victims in Pakistan. $500 million. Let's help Texas and our people back home.
Thank you, Kay. I'd also like to call on my colleague, Louis Gilbert from Texas 1.
Thanks, Kiko. We do thank you for your great work on this issue. But we know that, as Kay pointed out, Pakistan had flood problems, so this administration rushes hundreds of millions of dollars in. Libya gets in a tizzy, goes after a bad guy, Gaddafi, and so we choose to help the rebels, this administration does, putting American treasure and American lives at risk. There are a lot of things this administration has done questionable. Particularly the president rushes around the world trying to be the world president. We understand in Texas, we're traditionally a donor state. We give a lot more than we get back. We understand. We love America. We're proud to be a donor. We understand that who much is given, much is required. We understand that. But we still are dealing with the aftermath of hurricanes. When Hurricane Katrina hit, Texas was affected. We took in hundreds of thousands of evacuees, and then were immediately hit with Hurricane Rita. We didn't get much help from the federal government from that. And some of those that were hurt by Ike, like in the southern end of my district, we're going through the issue right now. The federal government, with HUD in charge, has now said the millions that were sitting there ready to help these people who lost their homes from flooding now will only be provided to these Texas counties if they will move minorities from places where they were flooded into suburban areas where these people tell us they don't want to move. They want their homes back where they were. So it says, sorry, you don't get your money. And then to be adding insult to injury now with over 2.3 million acres of land having been destroyed, knowing that the federal government has stepped in with 177,000, you heard the numbers, fractions of what we've lost in Texas, and this administration playing political payback. If you vote for him, you get a shuttle, even though you got no connection. Not Texas, because they're being punished. It's time to quit this partisan political payback scheme that this administration is doing and become a uniter, not a divider. The president said that's what he would do. That's what we're hoping that after 2.5 years, he'll finally start doing. Be a uniter. Don't come in to Texas just to suck money out for your political campaign coffers. How about helping some folks while you're there along the way? Don't just come to El Paso and belittle people about a moat. Hopefully he'll get a geographical lesson and understand we've got two big oceans, got Great Lakes, we got the Rio Grande. We don't need a moat, but thanks for the belittling comments while you're in El Paso, while much of Texas is suffering, Mr. President. We're just asking to be treated like other states who are suffering, who've suffered disasters, and follow the law. It shouldn't be that much to ask, and you know the President will finally come around. Thank you.
Thank you, Louis. And finally, I have my colleague, Judge Carter from Texas 31.
Thank you, Kiko, and thank you for the hard work you've been doing in this fire issue. To put it in perspective, we have 2.2 million acres of burned. If you were on the East Coast, that would be all of Delaware and all of Rhode Island burned up. So that ought to give you some concept of what kind of fire we've got going. At one time, of the 254 counties in the state of Texas, this was 2 weeks ago, 200 of those counties had fires going, being fought simultaneously. And yet we've asked the President of the United States to declare a disaster where literally hundreds of homes have burned and where people have lost lives to fight these fires, and we've been ignored. You can tell by the conversation you've heard here today that we feel, honestly, there's political payback going on in our state. But I will remind you that when the disaster struck New Orleans and the flood and the hurricane devastated that area, the first emergency response team into New Orleans was the Texas response team that waited outside of Beaumont until the governor made the call, and they were there within 3 hours. And no other response team had reached it before Texas did. We're always there for our neighbors, and we're only asking our neighbors to be there for us. It's important, very important, that the President lift this ban on helping the state of Texas. You know, when President Bush flew over the hurricane area and looked out the window, he was criticized for not landing, just for looking out the window. Well, the President of the United States, Barack Obama, flew from El Paso to Austin yesterday, and he didn't look out the window, or he'd have seen half the state of Texas on fire. It's time for him to wake up, quit playing Chicago politics, and reverse his denial of assistance for the state of Texas.
Thank you very much, Judge, and thank you all of you for being here. We are here today because we feel that Texas is crying out for help. The state of Texas has already expended more than $70 million on its own behalf to help on these fires, and the resources have been exhausted, and the fires continue. Just yesterday, in my district alone, in Brewster County, 2 fires have erupted, and many more will erupt during the course of the dry, hot summer. Any little spark can start a fire, and the wind will push it across the plains and across West Texas and create more damage. We are asking the President to come to Texas and help Texas out, as we have been asking for a while. It is the right thing to do.